All right, let's jump in, and I know folks will join as we come. Just a quick point of etiquette. Please put yourself on mute, although this will be a very highly interactive session, especially today. But while other folks are talking, please keep yourself on mute. Al, if you could put yourself on mute, that'd be great. Thank you. And then whenever you have something to say or want to contribute, please take yourself off mute. That'll just help with the background noise and keep it as clear as possible. So first of all, welcome everybody. My name is Sal Sylvester. I'm the founder and CEO of Coachmetrix. And this is our best practices masterclass. This is a monthly masterclass that we run for Coachmetrix subscribers. And we started this in March of 2020. And so we had a session in March, April, May, and June. We took the summer off. I hope that you all had an enjoyable summer. But now we're back, and we've got masterclasses lined up through the end of the year. So there'll be the second Friday of each month, October, November, December. So mark your calendars. So first of all, before we even get started, I just want to acknowledge a couple things. Number one, it's September 11th, which for folks who are based in the United States, and we do have some international folks on the call today, it's an important day, and just acknowledging this day I think is important. And there's also a lot going on in our world today between the pandemic and political environment and what's happening around Black Lives Matter. There's a lot going on. I think more than ever, we need coaches. We need coaches to make a positive difference in the world and to help elevate the consciousness of leaders and people at every level. So just want to take a moment to acknowledge that. Our intent for these masterclasses are really to be interactive sessions with coaches who are part of the Coachmetrix community. And the intent is to help us build our practices, help us build our coaching skills and abilities, and ultimately to help build the Coachmetrix community. And our long-term vision is that this community gets more and more connected. What I think Coachmetrix offers everyone is a common way to coach or framework, but yet it allows all of our different unique skills and abilities to come into the coaching process. So imagine you've got a coaching engagement in New York City and you need a coach in that area. Ultimately, we'd love to be able to connect coaches in the community with that common methodology and way of coaching, but still being able to bring in your uniqueness as a coach. So again, our intent is that this is conversational. Traditionally, I have teed up some information first about different strategies on whatever the topic is of the month. And then we've engaged in some conversation. Today, we're going to flip that model. I asked you to think about two things prior to the session today. Number one, what are some of the challenges that you're having with nurturing clients in this virtual world? And then number two, what's working? And so ultimately today's really going to be a discussion, and with 10 or 15 coaches on this call, hopefully we'll all get some really unique, interesting perspectives. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with a check-in. I think it's just been such a unique, dynamic year that it's helpful to hear from people across the country and the globe on what are you noticing and what are you doing about it, especially in this very, again, dynamic environment that we're in. Then we'll spend the majority of our time today talking about how do we nurture clients in this virtual environment. And for many of us, we've been coaching virtually forever, if not for years. And so maybe this is just a normal business for you, and maybe others are facing some challenges, but we'd love to share those challenges and successes. I'm going to share 3 Coachmetrix strategies to nurture clients. Our intent for these masterclasses is that this is not just about Coachmetrix, that it's broader than just the technology, but that it also does include Coachmetrix because you've already got a platform that's available to you to operate effectively in this virtual world. And I think that's a competitive advantage for you. And then finally, we're going to share resources, a community page that we recently launched. We just want to remind you that it is out there to help you in your nurturing and your selling process. Again, mark your calendars. All of these masterclasses will be from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock Mountain Time, October 9th, November 13th, and December 11th. So let's just do a quick check. What are you noticing today out in the marketplace, either with your clients or anything else that is changing, you know, as we've been through this environment since early March in the United States, at least, and longer maybe in some other European and Asian countries. What are you noticing now? And how are you responding? And specifically, what are you noticing in the marketplace or maybe with your clients? Who's got some observations that you'd be willing to share? Feel free to take yourself off mute and just jump in.
This is Kristen. I can share.
Great.
A lot of my clients are virtual, actually 100%, but some of them go into the office occasionally. Are operating in silos, disengaged, not having any fun, needing, you know, services more. And that's why this platform made sense for me, to keep everything organized and on track and feeling like they've got something to see as results. Yeah, to be honest with you.
Yeah, great. That's really interesting. I've seen the same. Part of what we're seeing, I think, related to that, Kristen, is there's a level of fatigue that we're seeing with our client, especially for those who haven't been virtual, that are stacked up with Zoom or video calls every day. So I could see how that could translate then into silos and being disengaged and some of those other things that you mentioned. Thank you for that. How about some other observations? What are you noticing? What are you doing? How you're responding to this market?
This is Whitney. I'm in Chicago.
Thanks, Whitney.
I will just say, I mean, I think this may be obvious, but like, people don't want to spend money on stuff like coaches. There's an appearance that because the economic downturn has really hurt so many companies, clients or not, that it feels like selfish spending to spend at the top to develop people, to develop leaders. And our response has been twofold. One, we have responded by creating smaller investment levels, both in time and in dollar amount. And I think the other response that we've really had is the way we're talking about coaching. Like, why an investment in coaching right now is perhaps even more important than it was in 2019. It's not always the easiest sell, but it's created very different revenue streams for us and brought in some really different fun clients. So we're definitely still doing really well, but it has been a shift for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really important for some coaches. What we've noticed is they have sort of one model of operating, and it's just coaching and it's just one-on-one. But I think there is an opportunity here for us to think a little differently, maybe, or very differently about our business. And sometimes crisis can be the mother of innovation. But it'll be interesting then to see also, Whitney, what you're able to carry forward and how that shifts your business model. What we've also noticed as well is that we've been more successful at selling at those small, we don't reduce our prices, but we will reduce the scope of a coaching engagement. And those have been really successful because we're able to offer some really targeted support, but maybe in a shorter time period than previously.
Well, I think what we're seeing now too, which is really interesting, is that folks for whom we have done a much smaller scope project, you know, just like a lunch and learn kind of a thing.
Right.
And this is, I think, to Kristen's point, that the quality of it has been so good, even though it's very different, that they're now hungry for more because they haven't been able to create that on their own. So it will be, I do think, as these companies are kind of like getting over the hump, there will be a lot more opportunity. So
yeah, I think that's a great point. It's part of the reason why I just sense that this topic of how do we nurture clients today could be important, because I think everything that we're doing is planting seeds for the future. And it's winter right now, but at some point in time, it will be spring. And if we're not nurturing, if we're not planting those seeds, then spring won't come. And we really want and need spring to come. Thank you for that, Whitney. How about a few others? What are you noticing out there in the marketplace, and how have you been responding?
Well, Sal, I'll go. Can you hear me?
Sure can, yes.
Similar to what you both just said, I think the mistake I made about 3 months ago, 4 months ago now maybe, is that the pandemic seemed to be ending. Remember around June, July, it looked like people were going to get back to the normal way of operating. Not the normal way of operating, but at least get out of the pandemic influence of and there were going to be more people, virtual and so forth. We knew that, but I thought they were going to get back to more of a normal. So therefore, my contacts, and I made a lot of contacts, were pretty much the same as I've always done. Helping them with their overall strategies, helping them with leadership and that kind of thing. And I think that was a mistake, because what I've had to do in the last couple of months, the last month or two, is shift my offering to what you all are talking about, which is more how to nurture clients the way that what they need right now, rather than what they're going to need 6 months from now, when hopefully this thing is going to end. So it's been tough, and I've gotten a couple of new clients, but I wish I had gotten more by being a little bit more quicker on my reaction to how the situation has changed in the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that, Al. Let's maybe hear from one other person before we jump into our main topic for today. Anybody else seeing something or noticing something different? I'll also share a few other observations as well. I think some of the other things that I would add, we've noticed some of our clients or prospects either delaying work or not engaging in the same level of scope of work. And we've also noticed that there are companies that are buying as well. So it seems to be taking a little bit more work, or maybe they're a little farther and fewer in between, but there are companies that are still purchasing significant coaching, training, facilitation, strategic planning services. And so I also want to plant that seed, that I know that is also out there. There are sort of multiple economies, if you will, that are happening today. So with that, I also want to offer some encouragement to say, I think if we're innovative, if we're creative, and hopefully we'll get some good ideas out of today's session, we can still tap into and find those opportunities. So for folks that I haven't met before, either on a demo or in a previous masterclass, we created Coachmetrix years ago because we started noticing some gaps in our own work. And as we were running long-term leadership development programs and really extensive executive coaching programs, we started to notice that, especially on the leadership development end, when action plans were paper-based, people either didn't do them or didn't do them to the extent that would drive behavioral change. So we wanted a platform that would help us with the action planning piece and create more transparency and accountability between the coach, the participant, and anyone else who was involved in that learner's process and development. The second thing we started noticing, and I'll never forget, I was in front of a leadership development cohort at a tech company that was eventually purchased by Oracle. And the chief information officer sat down, he looked at this really nice workbook that we created on the desk that I'd put on the first day of this 7-month program. And he looked up at me and he said, I haven't used a pen in years. And this was probably 2014, maybe 2013. And that hit me like a brick wall, because I could tell that the digital learner of the future was also going to need some other platform to support the process. And then ultimately, what we found in our work is that there was just a complete gap around truly measuring behavioral change. So all of that to say, those are the 3 primary drivers that led us to create Coachmetrix. And we originally built it on like a Drupal platform, which is like WordPress. And we used it for years internally before we decided in 2016 to re-architect it, build it from the ground up, and then launch it out to the world. So what I want you to know is this is built by coaches. It's made for coaches. I still coach in my coaching company. We use this platform in our own work. And then we've also got the Coachmetrix side of the business. we're really interested in hearing how you're using it, what you like, what you can't stand, what is difficult for you to figure out. Any and all feedback is great. We listen to everything. We can't promise we'll change everything, but your input really matters. And I think you can have a say in the future of this platform. And that's part of the community that we really want to build. Let's prepare and support and help each other to really build and grow our businesses and make a difference in this world. So let's jump into the main topic for today, which isn't really about Coachmetrix, but I'll introduce some Coachmetrix things as we go along. Number one, what are some challenges that you're noticing that are related to nurturing clients and getting your pipeline filled? And then the flip side of this is, what's a strategy that has worked for you that you have used to nurture your clients and keep that pipeline filled? So open discussion. I've got a few strategies that I'll share that we've been using and playing around with. And when I think about nurturing, this could be nurturing existing clients. It could be nurturing prospects. It could even really be nurturing new people and getting some new prospects into your pipeline. So let's open it up. This really is intended for the next 30 minutes or so to be a discussion. Scott, let's see, Scott's signing in right now. Who's got some thoughts on either a challenge that you're facing that you want some input from others on this call, or something that's really working for you right now? All right, Scott Richardson, do you have a challenge or success that's working for you right now?
I would say the challenge. It's a challenge and a success, and I just got done coaching a bunch of fire officers for a promotional exam.
Mm-hmm.
I have to apologize. I got on a few minutes late because our meeting ran long.
No problem. Scott, what's been working for you from a nurturing standpoint with your clients?
Taking the time to listen to them and be present with them without interrupting them.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously a really important skill. Jacqueline, how about you? What's been coming up in your world?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Sure can, yeah.
One of the things that's been very helpful is when we have a sponsor meeting that includes myself, the client, and their sponsor or immediate boss. We're able to talk about Coachmetrix in getting the input from the sponsor or boss to say, if there's only one goal that this individual could get feedback on, and it's a collaborative conversation, which would be the best? Because that's how we do it, Sal. We don't have them do multiple goals because, you know, the ability to have different groups of people weigh in on those behaviors is not necessarily present, I think. But it's been hugely successful because we're talking early in the engagement about getting feedback and getting it from people that are in a position to be informed and are, I use the language, supporters. You know, they are people you trust. They are people that are going to be invested in your development. So that's really been important because our engagements, like other people are talking about, aren't necessarily very long. And if we don't get that started earlier, it just takes a lot longer to get the goal inputted and to start that cycle of feedback.
Nice, excellent. I'll show you a technical thing about Coachmetrix because you can have different supporters for different goals.
Okay.
I want to touch on what you said first. This is really great. So you're finding the sponsor meetings have been really helpful to nurture people, and are you doing those early in the engagement?
Yeah.
What does that look like for you,
Sal,
Jacqueline?
what we're doing is the first meeting is just myself and the client. And then before the second session with the client, we have the sponsor meeting. So it happens after session 1, before session 2. And they're aware that Coachmetrix is part of it, but it just really helps to make that a very efficient and focused meeting with the sponsor to say, and if there's only one goal of the 3 that you know, X physician, their physicians I'm working with, could get feedback on, what do you think would be the best goal?
Terrific.
So that's when it happens in our engagements.
That's terrific. We do something similar. We typically will have that, we call it a calibration meeting, but it's a sponsor meeting. It's usually it's early in the process and then one toward the end of the engagement. Related to that, we've also done monthly check-ins with the sponsor where the client's not present. And it's a great opportunity also to just continue to understand what's happening in the business. We always start with business updates. Where there are either successes in the business or some constraints, and frankly, to uncover new opportunities and stay connected at the executive level, or at least at the executive sponsor level. So I think a lot of the nurturing is just being really great coaches. Hey, we don't have to sell anything, but just be really great coaches in all of these different types of conversations. I'm going to show Coachmetrix really quickly, Jacqueline, because just as we're looking at or having some of these discussions, Coachmetrix does have the ability to, you can have different supporters for different goals. Okay. Right now, when you add a supporter into Coachmetrix, those supporters are automatically assigned to every single goal. Right. If you go back into the goal and you edit the goal, and maybe you've seen this, you'll notice that the supporters will show up. And if you don't want those particular supporters to participate in the pulse feedback survey for that goal, you can uncheck them from that goal and then save the goal. When that pulse feedback goes out, those supporters will only receive the pulse feedback surveys that they've been assigned to.
Could I ask a quick question on that? That's super helpful, Sal. I don't want to dominate here. That I think I understood. I guess okay. I didn't believe that there's the ability to say, but I have 4 different people entirely that I want to get feedback on goal 2. Is that possible in Coachmetrix? I'm
not sure I understand the question.
Sure.
So you have 4 people, 4 participants?
Not just eliminating, not saying, oh, I don't want those 3, but I do want this. What if you had a separate goal, hypothetically, that you wanted to get feedback and it included none of the same people that are listed as supporters for the other goal?
Yeah, you could do that. You just add you add all of your supporters into Coachmetrix. And then if you only want one of those supporters to be receiving that pulse feedback, you uncheck everybody else. Does that make sense? I'll tell you what, why don't either Robin or I can stay on the line after this call or something to show you that specifically. I'm not sure if I answered your question or not.
No, I won't take up any more time.
Okay.
It wasn't unchecking and keeping one. It was just an entirely new group of people, but I don't want to bog down the meeting.
Okay,
so.
Gotcha. That's totally fine. Thank you for asking that question. Mm-hmm. We'll see if we can get an answer back to you after the session today. Okay, Jacqueline?
Thank you.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So executive sponsor meetings, beginning, throughout the engagement, at the end, various ways to use those, but you've used those to nurture your clients. Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a really good suggestion. Who else has either a challenge you're facing that you want some input on from others, or a success, something that's really worked for you in nurturing your clients today? There's some other ideas. We've got about 11 people on the line so far. John, how about you? Is there something that came up for you?
I think for me, it's keeping the people that I am coaching engaged in the process and not dropping out and following through on their commitments. That seems to be my biggest struggle right now with one client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell us more about that struggle.
Yeah, I'm coaching 7 individuals right now as part of a year-long leadership program, and getting them to respond through Coachmetrix to their assignments, and also having their discussions, and then following up and getting their pulse metrics done as well has been the struggle for me. And it's a new organization that's growing and never worked virtual, then having to work virtual and now coming back to work. There's some challenges with that.
Yeah. So there's challenges with them actually using the platform and engaging on the platform.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Awesome. Great. Who's got some ideas? How are you keeping both your participants engaged inside of Coachmetrix, as well as maybe even the supporters? Does anyone have any strategies you've been using to keep that level of engagement up? I'll be happy to share a few ideas on my end. Love to hear what you're doing. Kristen, I saw you just come off of mute. Did you have an idea on how you're engaging those participants?
Well, I did a screen share with a client to sort of get her a little bit more excited about buying into the concept. And that seemed to go pretty well, you know, and I like the simplicity of the platform. I guess I do have a quick question, which might be more technical and we could handle if this is not appropriate, but I think it would be more engaging for myself and my client. Every participant had an email that said, Susie just did whatever, or this supporter just entered in some information, or you know what I'm saying? Like same for me, for my client to see that as well. I think they do get that, but I don't get a copy to see what they see. And I wonder if some of that, not to blow our inboxes up in our emails, but maybe that would increase engagement on both sides a little bit. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So right now, if you start a discussion in Coachmetrix, or if you send a resource, and so that meaning you as the coach, the participant will get an email. So they'll get that discussion. It goes right to their inbox, and there's a link inside that email. They click on it. It takes them right into Coachmetrix so that they can respond inside of Coachmetrix. The same happens with resources. Recently, we created some notifications so that when a round of pulse feedback goes out and a participant gets pulse feedback, the coach is notified that the round of feedback goes out to all of their supporters, and then the participant is notified when new feedback comes in. And we're always sort of balancing, like, how many emails do we send? It's funny because some of our Coachmetrix clients will say, I'm getting way too many emails. At some point in time, we want to build more of a communication system so you can choose what you get and what you don't get. So that'll come eventually. I think the latest that we're building, and Robin, jump in if I'm missing this, is that anytime we engage supporters, the coach will also be notified so that there's clarification on what communication has gone out. Is that one of the latest that we've added into our recent development schedule, Robin?
It is, yeah. And we will also display all of the communications that you have sent to the supporters, so you can quickly keep track of that. And one other email notification that we have just added is when a coach adds a participant and they send a welcome email, the coach will be copied on that as well. So you can see exactly what they're seeing, and you know, because the system will allow you to send a welcome email when you add them to the system or at a later date. So you can keep track of if you've done that and when.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's what Robin was referring to is we're in one of our coachees accounts, and these are Greg's supporters. Greg is the coachee. Eventually, anytime that supporter gets contacted, that data will show up on this tile. So that's coming. So yeah, thanks for that feedback, Kristen. It's really helpful to hear that that's something that you're looking for. A couple of ideas on how we keep participants engaged. Number one, we assumptively use Coachmetrix. So we don't give our clients a choice. This is how we coach. And so they know it from the beginning that it's part of our coaching methodology to use Coachmetrix. So there's that going in position. Oftentimes what I will do is I will also get everything set up in the platform with a new coachee, meaning I'll add the coachee into the platform. I will not send them a welcome message. I will add a few resources. Usually it's around a coaching welcome kit that has coaching agreements and maybe even their first assignment or things like that. And then in my first coaching session with them, an intake session, I'll open up Coachmetrix and share my screen with them so they can see what the platform looks like. I'll give them a quick overview. And then right after the coaching session, I'll send them the invite to Coachmetrix. So they will already have seen it. So one, use it assumptively. Number two, orient them at the beginning. It doesn't have to be more than a 2 or 3 minute orientation. And then three, keep reinforcing to them that everything is going to be sort of housed in their one single hub, and help them see the benefit of having one central location. So for us, pre-coaching session messages go out through Coachmetrix. Notes afterward go out through Coachmetrix. We'll schedule check-ins so that they get discussion points from us throughout an engagement. They'll get resources that they can access really on any device. So it becomes that one central hub. That's the third recommendation, is to help sell them and let them know you can always go here for anything related to coaching, instead of Google Drive and email and Dropbox and Word documents. It's all right here in one central location. John, thanks for the question. Hopefully that helped out a bit. And if anyone else has any responses to that too, how are you engaging your participants in the process? Jump in. I'd add one more comment. How do you engage supporters? I think it's really critical. It's not uncommon to see supporters' engagement drop off throughout an engagement, unless the participant is doing one thing, which is verbally enrolling them at the beginning, right? So before we ever add someone into Coachmetrix, that participant, if you think about Marshall Goldsmith's stakeholder-centered coaching methodology as an example, step one is figure out what you want to work on. Step two is go public with that action plan, meaning tell people who are impacted by your behaviors what you are working on. And then number three, engage with them every 30 or 40 days to follow up. Hey, I've been working on X, Y, and Z. How have I done the last 30 days? What are your recommendations or ideas for the future, your feed forward? So that engagement at the beginning by enrolling them, and then the constant follow-up, it not only helps change behaviors, it also helps change perception, which I think is harder to change than behavior. But it keeps your supporters engaged so that when those pulse feedback surveys come out, even though they only take a minute or two to complete, you're still getting really good supporter engagement. Love to open it up to others. What are you either challenged with when it comes to nurturing your clients? It could be Coachmetrix related or not. Or what's working with you in this environment today?
Hey, Sal, this is John. One more follow-up question. I'm glad you brought up the supporters. When the pulse feedback goes out to the supporters, what is the from email address that they see?
That's a great question. Robin, is it Coachmetrix?
It is Coachmetrix, yes.
Yeah, so
okay,
it's, yeah.
I just want to encourage the coachees to remind them to look for that email for the pulse feedback, because that's where I'm having my most difficulty, is getting those supporters to respond to that. And I'll go on mute now and let you get back to the session. Thank you.
You know what? That's a very good point, John. I think that's a temporary fix, is to just let people know where it's coming from, because we're all so concerned about spam. But I think Robin and I might take that aside and see if there's any way for us to change that from line so it's coming from the coach's name. So we'll take that as an action to look into that. But in the meantime, yeah, that's a great point. Let your supporters and participant know that the Coachmetrix email is the from email. How about others? What are you noticing either challenged by in this market, and in terms of how you're nurturing clients, or something that's really working for you?
Hey, Sal, really quickly, just on that former point,
Yes.
not only what the email's coming from, but the frequency, And just, again, as much information as you can provide about how the process works, the number of pulse feedback rounds that have been set up, the duration of the program. Again, the frequency is the big important thing. Should they look for it monthly? Those kinds of things, so they are prepared and looking out for it rather than being inundated and trying to search for it through their email.
Yeah, it's a good question. I was going to try to show you something. I don't know if we have this set up in our test account. One of the things that we've done with our clients is we created just a very simple resource on how to enroll your supporters. I don't have it here, but we could somehow share it afterwards. And it's really just text on how to enroll your supporters. But what I'll do is when a client is getting ready to engage with supporters and add them into Coachmetrix, I'll share that resource with them. So they've got some very literal verbiage on how to enroll their supporters. So they can engage those supporters early and see more better engagement throughout the coaching process. All right, who's next? Who else has a challenge and or success in terms of what's working with nurturing your clients?
Hey, Sal, Whitney asked a question. Any tips on building rapport when you can't just take someone out to coffee or for happy hour?
Oh, that's so good. That's a good one, because I think we all face that in this virtual environment, and even if it's not in a coaching relationship. Yeah, let's open that one up. That's a really good one. How do you build rapport with your clients when you can't meet them face to face, and that casual lunch or coffee or dinner isn't necessarily available to you? What are you all doing today to nurture that relationship? Anybody have some ideas?
I think you can still do either one of those virtually. I know it's kind of a pain, but if you have something bigger than an iPad screen, perhaps a television or something, you can still have those virtual happy hours, and it's not as fun, it's not as social, but it's still that interaction, and it is a little more face to face than just the phone calls.
Yep. Yeah. So less casual, or I'm sorry, more casual, less formal, with really just an intent to connect. I've actually done that with a few clients over a beer, and in those relationships it worked. But yeah, so you're saying just try to mimic that, Scott, over a virtual platform. Great. What other ideas? What else has worked to casually, less formally build that relationship?
Well, Sal, one thing I've been doing, and you guys tell me if you think this is okay to do. There are several restaurants in the Chicago area who've really created tables and chairs outside the restaurant, around the restaurant, that are about 10 feet apart. And lately, I bet you I've had about 10 meetings over the last 3 or 4 weeks with either supporters or clients or potential clients, where I feel safe to be outdoors. Now, is that, you guys tell me if that is appropriate or not, given everything we know about this pandemic.
Yeah, well, it might be, those might be some personal decisions, but anybody have a point of view on that? Okay to meet people in person at a restaurant, maintaining that social distance outside?
Yeah, outside, yeah.
Yeah. I think people are making probably personal decisions based on their own risk factors. Kristen, it looks like you unmuted. Did you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be meeting some clients in Michigan next week, and we're going to attempt to do some additional outdoor restaurant seating. But the reality is Michigan, Chicago, etc. Gets bad weather, and it's coming quickly. So those options will be going, right? Those options go away very quickly for a long period of time. So
I was just going to bring that up.
I mean, I think, again, you're right, Sal, it does go back to what we feel comfortable doing. But I do think the Zoom lifestyle is be more normal. I think you just have to get creative with it.
Yeah.
I think as coaches, we need to build our own network of supporters. So we're somehow having fun, we're engaging, we're sharing ideas, sort of like we are now. Maybe it's targeted. There's other things you can do. You can play games, etc. And then for our clients, I think, I know a lot of my coaching colleagues and myself, we're looking at, sort of targeting more specific topics that people will want to listen into, whether it's for 30 minutes or an hour. So sort of like, training, but more group coaching. People want to learn and really, walk away with something versus just sort of staring at the screen. So I think being creative and engaging is very critical to be able to get people to want to sign on for another Zoom.
Yeah.
So Kristen, do you do that as kind of like a podcast where that other coach is your guest and you bounce stuff off of each other?
Well, that's funny you say that, because I do have a podcast, and I do think that is a great source of engagement. That could be something you could do, and I do recommend that as an outlet for sure. I think it can support your business as well. But I tend to do some small group sessions, I should call it, where we're engaging either around a topic, or sometimes it's just socially, sometimes it's with coaches at my level, and sometimes I'm doing more of the facilitation of a topic. I think COVID is
so it's more of like a round table.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, COVID and anxiety and stress, and that is a hot topic right now because everyone is equally feeling it. Versus, a year ago where signing up for something would be, a little tougher perhaps. So there's lots of commonalities that especially if their job is working virtually now.
I love those ideas, and Scott, love the question. Anything else coming up for you, Scott, as you hear some of those ideas?
So I have two jobs. We have a coaching company called Empower to Evolve, but I also work as a battalion chief for a fire department, and we're used to being around each other 48 hours at a time, and we're used to hugging, and we're used to being close, and we have all these promotional exams coming up and coaching all of these officers. We've had those roundtables, just like what was just mentioned, and it really does help relieve a lot of that stress that the guys have from going on just emergency after emergency. So I totally agree with what you both said. I think that really helps ease a lot of that tension, and it creates different types of client coaching relationships.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Let's go over to Whitney. Whitney, did you, I saw you come off mute earlier. Did you have a point of view?
Well, I just wanted to share the point about Chicago winters. I am in Chicago, and that my access to doing some of those things that I have done, and I've done them a little bit safely with clients that are fairly new, and I'm still trying to get to know a little bit. And I'm just really aware I'm not going to be able to do that in November. And so really thinking about, what does it look like to do that? If anybody else has anything to add about, like, specifically, and I'm a little baby coach, I'm new. So I'm really thinking about too, like, how do I build that into maybe my check-ins when we're first starting a call, or I love the idea of, building more rapport with the supporters and the sponsors too. I'm typically usually only working with like the team or the individual. Our partners really work a little bit more with other areas of the business. But yeah, I mean, I guess like anything, like any big questions that you might ask when you're checking in with someone, or more about like being a coach, I think, than like something outside of yourself, like a round table.
Yeah, great. Anyone have thoughts? How do you check in at the beginning of those coaching calls, or questions you might ask, or what has worked for you?
Hi, Whitney. This is Jackie. Spoke earlier. One of the things I found about the check-in becoming so important during this time, of course, being on video and not doing audio, but I am heavily influenced by positive psychology. So I try to make sure we start early on by saying, what's a highlight that's happened for you? It could be work or non-work since the last time we met. And it might be 3 weeks ago, right? It might be 4, it might be 2. But I found that when I don't do that and we just, jump straight in, the energy or the just heaviness and fatigue related to the pandemic is more palpable. So I realize that's time well spent, and I won't say that I do it every time, and that's so it's not like I'm perfect, but I found that's made a difference to have that be early in the session.
Yeah, that's really great. My coach asks me similar question, either something that's working or what's a win that you've had.
Yeah.
We get more of what we focus on, right? So if we focus on what can expand, that, back to the positive psychology, it is a great way to start.
That I appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other ideas? This is great. I might show you a couple of strategies that we had prepared to share with you today. And the first one is, or this is really the third one, which is it's a bit automated, and it may not be like really touchy-feely, but what I do is I schedule a discussion to go out to my clients after we send them coaching session notes. So maybe I'll just show my Coachmetrix screen again really quickly. So if I'm working with Greg, let me go into Greg's account again. And after a coaching set, and coaches have different philosophies on this, so you can, take it or leave it. But I will often, we create this really nice history with our coaching notes and our pre-coaching session messages before and after each session. So there's a reminder that something's coming, that the coaching session's coming up, and there are questions that our coaches respond to, and they respond right in line inside of the discussion. Instead of uploading a Word document, having them download it, fill it out, save it, upload it, resend, like all of that goes away. But then we also send coaching notes after each coaching session as well. Again, coaches have different philosophies on this. But what I'll do immediately after sending that coaching session note is I will then schedule a check-in. And I'll customize whatever the message is, usually around an action item that they have or some kind of insight that they had from that coaching session to see how things are going. And then I'll schedule it so that it goes out at some later date in between now and when our next coaching session is. So it's a bit automated and logistical, but it comes across as very personal because it's about them. It's about their coaching activity that they're taking action on. And I get that scheduled right after I send their coaching message, and it just automates that process. So if you're juggling, like John mentioned, he's got 7 coaching clients, right? That's a lot of coaching clients to be juggling, especially if you've got other coaching clients on your plate as well, but you can automate a lot of this nurturing process.
So just a quick process question on that. So you said you do it after the session, you do the session, then you send them notes. Then you would just go ahead and automate it while it's still fresh for you.
Exactly.
Do you get a notification that it's about to send, or,
so
I'm just thinking like the immediate thing is like, oh, I'm going to forget that I did that. And then something's going to change, and it's going to be weird.
Yeah, that's a great question. What Coachmetrix does is if you have a coaching message that you're going to schedule for some point later in the future, let's say it's going to be scheduled for the 17th, and I save that, in that lineup of discussions, that one is highlighted and it says scheduled off on the right.
Oh, and it says the date that it's going to go out.
And it says the date it's going to go out.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
thank you.
but that's a good point. If you've got, 15 of these things and you forget that you've scheduled it, but then you've contacted your client separately over email, that can make a difference too.
Or just that I've heard that there's a shakeup at the business or something like, and I actually would want to change it a little differently because I've been prompted to actually reach out with that client.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. While I'm on this page, the other thing I want to make sure you know about is we added this community page inside of Coachmetrix. And again, this is for subscribers. And inside of that community page, and this is very simplistic right now, but we're really hoping to build this out over time. But there's some sales support information in here. Things like the Coachmetrix infographic, there's a pitch deck, there's a demo script, there's a video, logo, authorized partner logo. You can use all of that for your marketing. And then there's a definition of Coachmetrix terms. So you can get your clients and or maybe other coaches on your team ready for what does supporter mean versus participant versus coach. There's a project checklist. There's some sponsor and participant emails. We also have, we call it a partner program. So if you bring other coaches into Coachmetrix, we're gonna reward you for that. So if you're interested in doing that, you can download the application and there's a process so that we can track that and get you paid when you bring other people into the Coachmetrix community. And then all of the masterclass recordings are housed in here as well. So you can go back to any of the masterclasses and listen to those at any point in time. So anyway, this is another resource for you that might help in some of the nurturing that you do with your clients. And then finally, I'll go back to my PowerPoint really quickly with one other strategy. And the strategy is, and we heard, I think Whitney and others say, you're creating new coaching programs or other programs because of this environment that we're in. Well, one idea is you can do some market research as you're creating these new coaching programs. Oops, let me go back really quickly. And as you're doing this market research, you could also be engaging with some potential new prospects. So let's say you've got a new onboarding coaching program, or you've got a new program on resilience or on leading change or dealing with crisis. Go out and call your top 10 clients or prospects that you would ultimately want to work with and say, I'm developing this new program. I would love your input on what that looks like. Can I do a 20-minute interview with you? So number one, it's a great way to show your thought leadership. Number two, it's a great way to actually get some real life market intelligence that you can build into the program. And it's a great way to potentially, sorry, that's my dog barking, the joys of working from home. And it's a great way to engage with some new prospects and start to build a relationship in a way that you're not selling anything. So that's another strategy that we wanted to offer today. And as you're having those conversations about the program that you're building, you can communicate, what does it look like before people go through this training, and what does it look like after, and what's that transformation look like that you're hoping to build in this new program. So that's one third tip on how to maybe nurture new prospects and build some new relationships in this environment that we're in. So I want to open it up. Yeah, go ahead. Who's that?
Sorry, this is Kristen. I just had a fast question on that.
Kristen.
Okay. So are you recommending if we were to do that, we load a PowerPoint, we share the screen and we show them the PowerPoint? Is there other tools that you're thinking of or how we would demo through Coachmetrix?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be about Coachmetrix. It could just be a program you're building. So for example, we're building a new resilience program. And this week we reached out to 5 prospects, people who know of us, but we're not doing work with. And we simply said, we're building this new resilience program. We'd love your input on what the program looks like. Can I get on a 20-minute interview with you? And we're not even going to show anything, but we're going to just ask them questions about what the program looks like. And you could certainly show them anything, excuse me, that you want. Hold on for one. Sorry about that. You could certainly show them materials or Coachmetrix along the way if that's important, or give them an outline or maybe an overview of what you're thinking about in terms of the program that you want to develop, because it very well might be something that they need internally as an organization. But like keeping it super simple, it's just an interview and you're just gathering information, and along the way you can certainly share your vision for that program or that course.
Thank you. I love that idea, because sometimes I think it's all or nothing, and this is like a quick demo, and if they like it, then finish developing it. If they're not interested, okay, well, try 10 more people and then decide maybe.
Absolutely. And it's a great lean startup mentality. Like when you're building a product, you usually want to create the minimally viable product before you invest a ton of money into building it, whether it's a training course or a software package. So put something out there that's skeleton, get some input, see how your customers or potential prospects are responding before you go and develop this thing. Plus, they might have some really good insight into what their needs are. And I think there's a lot of value. So it becomes a win-win for them and for you. A lot of insight can be gained. And it's also a great way to start building maybe some new relationships. I know that for most of this year, we spent a lot of time nurturing existing clients, really trying to be supportive of the relationships we already have. I think this is a nice way to start expanding into new relationships as we're planting those seeds for spring. So we've got just a minute or two left. Any final comments before we wrap up? All right. Well, I want to thank you for being part of this process today and part of the conversation. Join us in the future, and we're grateful to have you as part of the Coachmetrix community, and I hope that we can continue to stay connected and support each other and continue to build each other's businesses and, of course, make a bigger impact in this world. So join us again in October. Reach out to Robin or myself if you've got any questions or need any support with Coachmetrix, and hope you have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Sal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Whitney. Thanks, Kristen.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, David.
Thanks very much.
Robin. Thanks, Scott. You're welcome. Thank you.